Today we're talking about respiratory tract infections and the peritoneal cavity. I'm the student, as you all know, and ChatGPT is the, teacher? Could we say that? But it's going to help us out anyway. So, I checked the audio, all is good. We can start our learning journey. So, let's open up our Notability app to get some notes. And guys, I've got some anatomy apps too that we're going to use for the first time. And I don't know how to use them, so that's going to be fun too. And as you can see here, the topics of the day: peritoneal cavity, respiratory tract infections. And I also want to introduce this. Let's try to answer these things throughout the episode: significance, history, etymology, evolution, philosophy, multidisciplinary questions, fun facts. Okay, so let's kick things off with today's topic then, shall we? Let's start with why, as a doctor or as a patient, it's good for us to know about the peritoneal cavity and why it's good for us to know about the respiratory tract infections. So, ChatGPT, could you address this? So, why is it important to know about the peritoneal cavity as a patient or doctor? Why is it important to know about the respiratory tract infections?
Knowing about the peritoneal cavity is crucial because it houses vital organs, and infections or issues there can be serious, like peritonitis. For respiratory tract infections, understanding them helps in early detection and treatment, reducing complications and spreading. Both are key for maintaining overall health.
Tell me again.
Sure. Knowing about the peritoneal cavity matters because it contains essential organs, and issues there can be serious, like peritonitis. For respiratory tract infections, understanding them helps with early detection and treatment, which can reduce complications. Both are vital for staying healthy.
So in this general answer of yours, you're basically saying that it helps us with identifying diseases and understanding treatment. That's a very generic answer. Could we go a bit deeper?
Absolutely. Knowing the peritoneal cavity helps in recognizing conditions like appendicitis, liver disease, or abdominal trauma, which can present with specific pain patterns and symptoms. For respiratory tract infections, knowing them means understanding the differences between upper and lower infections, their potential complications like pneumonia, and the best treatment approaches. This deeper knowledge aids in precise diagnosis and management.
I'm not going to give you a pass. I don't think this answer is... I think it's close to a pass, but I think you have to impress us a bit more. Imagine the students that are 18 years old, maybe they're 15 years old, thinking, am I going to get into medicine? Maybe I shouldn't even try. I don't know if this will make them interested enough. I mean, it's interesting to me. I don't know if it's going to be interesting to them.
All right, let's make it more engaging. Imagine you're a detective, and the peritoneal cavity is your crime scene. Spotting clues, like pain patterns, helps solve cases like appendicitis or liver disease. For respiratory tract infections, you're tracking down the bad guys, bacteria or viruses. Understanding these helps you crack the case early and keep everyone healthy. Exciting, right?
Yeah. But, okay, actually, you know what? I think your answer is good enough. Okay. So, guys, I'm not going to go through significance, history, etymology. I'm going to use this, and until the end of the episode, we will kind of have covered all of this. Basically, every time we get a bit overwhelmed, I'm going to be coming back to this. So, this is a good start. I think now is a good time to jump to our topic. Yeah?
Sounds like a plan. Let's dive into the topic.
And guys, you probably noticed this is kind of a cool combination of topics because they're not completely directly related. So let's kick things off, ChatGPT, with respiratory tract infections. Let's start with the etymology and semiotics, semantics, however you want to call it.
Sure, the term respiratory comes from the Latin respirare, meaning to breathe. It refers to the organs involved in breathing, like the lungs and airways. Infections in this system can affect any part, from the nose down to the lungs, causing symptoms like coughing, congestion, or difficulty breathing.
Respirare.
Exactly. Respirare literally means to breathe again, capturing the essence of what the respiratory system does for us.
Interesting. Okay.
Language.
This is from yesterday's episode, guys. So, respirare. Let's check this word out. Who was making these names in the Latin times? I don't even know where Latin is located.
Latin was spoken in ancient Rome, which is in modern-day Italy. The Romans named a lot of things we still use today.
Okay, interesting. And when we say the word tract, what do we mean?
Tract refers to a system of organs or a series of connected parts in the body. In respiratory tract, it means the passageways through which air moves from the nose and mouth down to the lungs.
Okay.
It's a handy term for describing those pathways.
I see, so it means pathway. And what's the etymology of the word tract?
Tract comes from the Latin word tractus, meaning a drawing out or a stretch. It implies a continuous pathway or region.
Tractus with a TUS?
Exactly. Tractus with a TUS at the end. It captures the idea of something extended or drawn out.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, word origins are pretty cool, right?
Yes, sirree, yes, sirree, yes, sirree. And what allows our respiratory tract to get infected in the first place?
Good question. The respiratory tract is exposed to the outside environment. So pathogens like viruses and bacteria can easily enter when we breathe. Plus, the warm, moist environment inside is ideal for these microorganisms to thrive.
And when did infection start becoming a thing? Did they start becoming a thing more after the agricultural revolution and after the capitalist system with like maximizes production?
Infections have been around as long as humans, but they likely increased after the agricultural revolution because people started living in closer quarters, which made it easier for diseases to spread. Industrialization and capitalism further amplified this with urbanization, dense populations, and global travel.
Interesting. So, well, I have a question which... so, where do you base this? Is my question.
Historians and archaeologists have found evidence of infections in ancient human remains, and written records from early civilizations describe diseases. The rise in infections correlates with shifts in lifestyle, like agriculture and urbanization, which brought people and animals closer together.
Any books we can read to learn more about this?
Sure. Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond is a great read. It explores how germs have shaped human history. Another one is Plagues and Peoples by William McNeill.
What's the book called, the first one?
It's called Guns, Germs, and Steel.
Yeah, it's a very famous history. You mentioned it before, actually, and I never read it. I should. I was between that and Nexus of Harari, and I read this. Okay, Guns, Germs, and Steel. So, guys, check this book. What is the author, ChatGPT?
The author is Jared Diamond. It's a fascinating read.
Jerry Diamond. Shout out to the two people that might watch this. Okay, we kind of naturally talked about the significance and the history and the etymology. So let's jump a bit deeper, shall we? So it seems like medicine, we have to think of it. So how should we be thinking about medicine? I guess one way is to think it in terms of systems, in a holism kind of philosophical way, right? We have the respiratory system and the digestive system, etc. What's other ways to be thinking about it?
Absolutely. Besides systems, we can think of medicine in terms of functions, like how organs contribute to homeostasis. Another approach is by focusing on pathology, studying how diseases disrupt normal processes. And of course, there's the patient-centered perspective, which looks at medicine through individual experiences and holistic care.
And all these are very important. So, let me ask you a question. What structures do we have in the respiratory system?
The respiratory system includes structures like the nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, and lungs. These parts work together to bring air in, exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide, and expel waste.
Sorry guys, I had to write something. Tell me one more time, GBT.
No problem. The respiratory system includes the nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, and lungs.
So nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, and what else?
And bronchi and lungs.
Bronchi and lungs.
Exactly. All essential for breathing. They each play a key role.
Is there another word for nose? It's I'm just asking.
Sure, you can say nasal cavity for a more technical term.
Nasal cavity. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a more precise way to refer to the nose area.
Okay. Now I'm gonna pull a picture so we can see the different structures.
Great idea. Visual aids can really help clarify things.
So what shall I write on Google? Respiratory structures?
Yeah, searching respiratory system structures should give you a good diagram.
System structures.
Exactly. That'll show you all the key parts.
Amazing. Give me a sec, guys. Just a sec. Boom, boom.
Take your time. Once you find one, we can walk through it.
Guys, until I finish this, sorry, I'm just writing a note on my laptop for our podcast. I kind of finished, but yeah, I mentioned that I'm gonna use the anatomy apps today too, which we'll learn how to use together. Also, there's some really cool websites I've used a bit before this podcast. KenHub is one of them. Osmosis is another one. And Teach Me Anatomy is another one. And I think these are really cool, guys. Okay, so a respiratory system structure. Let's find a good picture. So here it is: nasal cavity, oral cavity, trachea. So we have upper respiratory tract and we have lower respiratory tract.
Yes, exactly. The upper respiratory tract includes the nasal and oral cavities, pharynx, and larynx. The lower tract consists of the trachea, bronchi, and lungs.
And we have the epiglottis too.
Yes, the epiglottis is a flap that covers the trachea during swallowing to prevent food from entering the airway.
What about the sinuses?
The sinuses are air-filled spaces in the skull connected to the nasal cavity. They help humidify and filter the air we breathe.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're pretty important for respiratory health.
Okay, so let me go just a second back to the pictures, guys. Which one shall we use? This is too many names.
Find one that labels the key structures clearly. That'll keep it simple.
You bet.
Take your time. No rush.
Yeah, this one is good. The diaphragm is not part of the lower respiratory tract, or is it?
The diaphragm respiratory tract itself, but it's essential for breathing. It contracts to help draw air into the lungs.
Mm-hmm. How do I copy paste the picture? I used to be better at this. Wait a sec, guys. Sorry for the delay.
No worries. Take your time to get it right.
Well, that's not entirely true, but
That's okay. We'll figure it out.
maybe it's just this picture. But anyway, guys, let me try another picture, and if it doesn't work, we can.
Sure, give it another shot.
Because yesterday we could do it a bit better.
It happens.
Here it is. Oh yeah, we did it, guys. Alright, so nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx. So can I ask about the border between the pharynx and the larynx?
Sure. The border between the pharynx and larynx is marked by the epiglottis. The pharynx is above, and the larynx begins just below it.
Interesting. And what is the epiglottis job?
The epiglottis acts like a switch closing off the trachea when you swallow, so food and liquid don't enter your airway.
Interesting. And what is the pharynx's job, and why is it named pharynx?
The pharynx is a muscular tube that serves as a pathway for both air and food, directing them to the larynx and esophagus, respectively. Its name comes from the Greek word pharynx, meaning throat.
And the larynx?
The larynx, also known as the voice box, houses the vocal cords and is crucial for sound production. It also plays a role in protecting the airway during swallowing.
The trachea, and what about the esophagus? Is not part of the respiratory, huh?
That's right. The esophagus is part of the digestive system. It carries food from the pharynx to the stomach, while the trachea, or windpipe, is part of the respiratory system, carrying air to the lungs.
So what? So the job is carrying air.
Exactly. The trachea's job is to carry air from the larynx to the bronchi and then into the lungs.
All right, perfect. This is going good. Okay. Give me a sec, ChatGPT. Let's make sure our podcast is running nice and smoothly. Sec. Until I make it sure, tell us what's going on around the epiglottis.
Sure. The epiglottis is a flap of tissue at the top of the larynx. When you swallow, it tilts back to cover the trachea, directing food and liquid into the esophagus. When you're breathing, it stays upright, letting air pass into the trachea.
Interesting. And it's a bit weird, the structure of the epiglottis, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a fascinating structure. Its flexibility and movement are key to keeping our airways safe.
Can you talk a bit louder?
Sure, the epiglottis is fascinating. Its flexibility and movement are key to keeping our airways safe.
Okay. Now, let's go a bit forward. So we talk about the structures and the functions, well, kind of, very, very, very briefly. Can we talk about the common infections of the upper respiratory tract?
Sure, upper respiratory tract infections are super common and usually involve the nose, throat, and sinuses. The main culprits are viruses, like the common cold, causing symptoms like a runny nose, sore throat, and cough. Usually, they resolve on their own with rest and fluids.
So it's viruses or bacteria too?
Mostly viruses, but bacteria can also cause infections like strep throat. Viral infections are more common, and antibiotics won't help with those. If symptoms are severe or persist, a doctor can check if it's bacterial.
So more common is to be viral. And you gave the example of strepto for bacteria. What is strepto?
Strep throat is caused by a type of bacteria called Streptococcus. It usually leads to a really sore throat, fever, and swollen lymph nodes. It's diagnosed with a quick test at the doctor's office.
And
if it's
how
positive,
is this strepto produced? Is it in the plants? Is it in the soil? Is it in where?
Streptococcus bacteria are found in the human throat and skin. They spread through respiratory droplets, like when someone coughs or sneezes. It's not something you'd find in plants or soil.
Well, did we always have it? And how come we don't kick it out with evolution? Who's keeping it?
Well, the bacteria can live harmlessly in some people. Evolution doesn't eliminate everything. It's a balance. Our immune system usually keeps it in check, but sometimes it causes infections.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Got any other questions?
Well, we are gonna cover a lot of things, but let's keep a slow, steady pace.
Absolutely. One step at a time.
Okay. So, can I ask you about things that we haven't mentioned? For instance, when it comes to the respiratory tract. So we have the bronchi, and then we have the bronchioles, and then we have the terminal bronchioles, and then the respiratory. Can you tell us this pathway?
Sure. So air travels from the trachea into the bronchi, which are the main airways in the lungs. These bronchi branch into smaller bronchioles, and those lead to even tinier respiratory bronchioles. Finally, air reaches the alveoli, where gas exchange happens.
So is it first terminal and then respiratory?
Exactly. Terminal bronchioles come first, and then they transition into respiratory bronchioles, which lead directly to the alveoli.
And what's the different function of the terminal and the respiratory bronchioles?
Terminal bronchioles mainly conduct air, while respiratory bronchioles also have some alveoli for gas exchange. So, the respiratory bronchioles are like a transition zone between conducting airways and the alveolar sacs.
I don't understand the difference.
The defense mechanisms are mainly in the upper airways, like mucus and cilia, which trap and move particles out. Alveoli have immune cells, like macrophages, to handle anything that gets down there.
Explain to me again.
Sure, in the upper airways, mucus and tiny hair-like cilia trap and move particles out. In the alveoli, immune cells, like macrophages, handle anything that makes it that far.
Okay.
All cleared out?
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about pathogenesis. So we talked about that the lungs are exposed to these viruses and all of that. When it comes to pathogenesis, how do we arrive to immunity? We have different types of immunity.
Yes, we do. When we talk about immunity, there are two main types, innate and adaptive. Innate immunity is our first line of defense, like barriers and cells that respond quickly. Adaptive immunity develops over time, with specific responses like antibodies. This adaptive response gives us long-term protection after exposure or vaccination.
And tell me about structures that are involved with each type.
For innate immunity, you've got physical barriers like skin and cells like macrophages and neutrophils. For adaptive immunity, there are lymphocytes, B cells, which produce antibodies, and T cells, which help
thymus cells and bone marrow cells?
Exactly. The thymus is where T cells mature, and the bone marrow produces all blood cells, including B cells. So they're crucial for both types of immunity.
So how is the cilia involved in innate?
Cilia are hair-like structures in the respiratory tract. They help sweep mucus and trapped particles out of the airways, preventing pathogens from reaching the lungs.
Tell me again.
Sure, cilia move rhythmically to push mucus with trapped particles and pathogens out of the airways, acting as a cleaning mechanism to keep the lungs clear.
Interesting. What about IgA?
IgA is an antibody found in mucosal areas, like the respiratory tract. It helps neutralize pathogens before they can infect cells, playing a crucial role in mucosal immunity.
And IgA stands for immunoglobulin.
Exactly. IgA stands for immunoglobulin A, one of the main antibody types in our immune system.
And why is it called A?
The A in IgA just differentiates it from other types like IgG, IgM, IgD, and IgE.
So was A found first or not?
No, IgG was identified first. The letters don't reflect the discovery order, just their structure and function.
Okay. And what's a globulin?
Globulins are a group of proteins in the blood, including antibodies like immunoglobulins. They play various roles, from immune responses to transporting substances.
One more time.
You're welcome.
I said one more time.
Sure, globulins are a group of proteins in the blood, including antibodies, and they have various roles like immune defense and transporting substances.
Okay. All right. Can we talk a bit about the history of immunoglobulins?
Sure, immunoglobulins were discovered in the early 20th century. The first one identified was IgG in the 1930s. Over time, researchers identified the other classes, IgA, IgM, IgD, and IgE, each with distinct roles in the immune system.
I wonder, was IgG named IgG or did it become IgG after we decided to call others IgA?
IgG was named first based on its properties. The other immunoglobulins were named later, following the same pattern.
But how come it was named IgG? That's so random that they chose the letter G.
It might seem random, but the G actually comes from gamma, referring to the gamma fraction of blood proteins where IgG was first identified during electrophoresis.
Gamma.
Immunoglobulins were initially separated based on their movement in an electric field, and IgG fell into the gamma region.
That makes sense. Do we have other regions?
Yes, there are alpha and beta regions too, which contain other proteins like albumin and different globulins.
But IgD doesn't have to do with delta.
Right, the naming isn't tied to Greek letters or regions for IgD. It's just part of the classification system based on their structure and function.
So some of them are named IgG because of gamma, but others are not because of like the electromagnetic whatever.
Exactly. The initial names were based on where they were found in electrophoresis, but later ones just followed the established naming convention.
Really?
Yup, it's a mix of history and practicality.
So weird. Wow. What's the philosophical implication here?
Philosophically, it shows how scientific knowledge evolves. A adapting as we learn more. It's a reminder that systems and labels aren't always perfect, but serve a purpose.
What's some practical life advice we can gain from philosophically investigating this?
Stay curious and open-minded.
No, I think this is not enough. I'm thinking, what I'm saying is, the fact that we named it IgG because of gamma, but then we're like, the other ones don't need to have gamma waves. Is it gamma waves or rays or what is this?
Got it. It's gamma globulins referring to a protein fraction, not gamma waves or rays. The naming evolved to fit the discoveries.
Confused, bro.
No worries. It's all part of the scientific journey.
Well, can you explain? Tell me more about the G. Why are you so? Why are you so stingy with your words?
The G in IgG stands for gamma because it was found in the gamma fraction of blood proteins. It's not about gamma, waves, or rays.
What do you mean gamma fraction? What is this fraction?
The gamma fraction refers to a portion of blood proteins separated during electrophoresis. It's where IgG was found, hence the name.
Portion of proteins during electrophoresis.
Exactly. Electrophoresis separates proteins based on size and charge. The gamma fraction is where they found IgG, leading to its name.
A portion of proteins during electrophoresis doing what? Why are they the portion? What's the characteristic they have that makes them a portion instead of the whole?
Proteins separate into fractions based on their electric charge and size. The gamma fraction is just one group that migrates together during the process, which is where IgG was found.
And to be a gamma, to have this gamma trait, what size and charge do you need?
Gamma globulins, including IgG, typically have a neutral charge and a moderate size, which causes them to migrate to the gamma region during electrophoresis.
And why did we name the neutral charge and moderate size gamma?
The gamma name comes from where these proteins migrate during electrophoresis, not their specific charge or size.
Well,
It's just found it.
wait a sec, dude. Now you're confusing me. You said they're named gamma because there is a certain portion of proteins, because of there a fraction, a portion of proteins during electrophoresis, and you said that gammas having neutral charge and moderate size, and I'm telling you, then why is this naming them gammas?
Apologies for the confusion. The gamma name is based on where these proteins appear during electrophoresis. The neutral charge and moderate size influence their placement in that region, so they're collectively called gamma globulins.
So gamma is a region.
Yes, exactly. It's a region in the electrophoresis results where certain proteins, like IgG, migrate.
So gamma is a region. What other regions do we have? Alpha and beta, you said. So IgA is another region?
Yes, there are alpha and beta regions as well. IgA is typically found in the alpha region. Each region corresponds to where different proteins migrate during electrophoresis.
And we have IgD2 and other immunoglobulins that do not belong in alpha, beta, or gamma regions.
Yes, IgD and IgE have their own distinct regions. They don't fit neatly into alpha, beta, or gamma, but are still classified based on their properties.
So why are they globulins, D and E, since they don't fit into these three regions?
They're called globulins because they're still part of the broader family of blood proteins. Their classification isn't about the region, but their role and structure as antibodies.
Tell me again.
Sure, they're called globulins because they belong to the same family of blood proteins, regardless of their specific electrophoresis region.
I'm confused.
No problem.
Well, explain.
So, globulins are a broad category of proteins, including antibodies. IgD and IgE are part of this family, even if they don't fit neatly into the traditional alpha, beta, or gamma regions.
And where is their regions then?
IgD and IgE have their own regions in electrophoresis, separate from alpha, beta, and
Okay, 30-second break, guys. Just a sec.
Sure, take your time.
Hope you're having a good day, guys. I'm just fixing something on my phone. It's good to have some breaks. I think this is cool with the live stream. We all need a break sometimes. I mean, you guys can pause it, but I don't know.
Absolutely. Breaks are important for everyone, even during a live stream.
All right, back to work.
All right, let's dive back in.
So, let's